This is a moment in Jewish history. Now in his 90s, Ezra Yakhin is the oldest reserve soldier in the Israel Defense Forces. Countless IDF soldiers have heard him lecture on army bases throughout the country, and now this past year he has been busier than ever, telling his story to young recruits. Ezra, welcome to the show.
Welcome, you too.
You are the author of several books. The most well-known is Elnakam, where you talk about your experiences in the Lochamei Herut Yisrael, the fighters for the freedom of Israel.
Right.
Back in the 1940s. Then you joined the Israel Defense Force in the war in 1948, and they still drafted you. Are you 96 years old now?
Right.
And how did this come about? I mean, after October 7th, they called you up, and then what happened?
Yes, because I serve in the reserves, they call me again and again every time there's tension or there's an action. And actually now, not as a fighter, but as a reserver who served at the education department of the army and the rabbinical army department. I especially lecture and give the spirit of our fight, because to be a Jewish fighter, it needs good arms, it needs good training, but most important part of our power is the spirit of the love to Israel. And this is my duty in the army. I do it in my lectures. It's very important, of course. Many years already I'm serving the army. I started as a fighter in the battlefield. I've been wounded several times. I've been hit in my head by 2 bombshells. I lost the sight of my right eye. But still, as long as I'm alive, I have to serve my people, because this is the most important thing to do, especially during wartime.
And what is the reaction of the soldiers? I assume they're about 18 or 19 years old.
Oh, they get very excited and they're eager to fight. And I want to tell you, in my times, there were great fighters, great heroes. Today, it's more than ever. Wherever I move, I see our heroes. I think it's not less than in the time of the Maccabees. And looking at those fighters that are eager to fight, are eager to defend, are eager to win the war.
Is there any negative reaction from any soldiers? Did anyone come up to you and say they didn't like a lecture?
No. Years ago, they used to ask, well, also they fight for their cause. And my answer is, we fought because of love. Love to our people and love to humanity. They act because of hatred. Hatred to Israel, which is in front line of humanity. And they're not only our enemies, they're enemy of humanity. We see it. It's the same enemy who ruined the Twin Towers in America, who murdered Robert Kennedy where he was about to become president of the United States. It's the same enemy who bombed the civil airplanes, civil trains. And until now, they kill just human beings because of their hatred to humanity. And today they launch missiles against the civil navigation in the Red Sea. It's the same enemy of us, the same enemy of humanity. And we are not only the front line of Israel, we are on the front line of humanity.
And maybe you could briefly talk, I know you wrote a whole book about this, but how you got involved in the Lochamei Herut Yisrael. You were a teenager?
Yes, at that time, the British ruled this country. We wanted to live as a free nation. It's our country. There's no right to any other nation to rule it. And not only that they ruled, they even oppressed us. They denied the right of Jews to come to their own country. The result was terrible during World War II, when to escape from the hands of Hitler, the British blocked their way to life. More than 4,000 Jews sunk in the seas, especially in the Mediterranean, because the British broke their way to this country. The rest stayed in Europe in the hands of the Nazis because they knew they have no chance to come to their own country and to save their lives. And we had to fight them. When I was a child, I thought I'll grow up, I'll fight the British, and I grew up. I managed to join Lehi, the fighter for the freedom of Israel. I took part in all kinds of activities, pasting posters on the walls that declare that we are fighting for the sake of our nation, for the freedom of our nation. And I worked at the post office. I had by spying the British and copying a mail which was addressed to the British authorities here to bring the copies to the underground. It was very important. And also I took part in the fighting with firearms. I saw some of my best friends being killed in the battlefield. Some of them were sentenced to death and hung on gallows. My best friend was tortured to death by British detectives when he was just 16 and a half years old, when they were trying in vain to get from him information. And that was the fight, and that's the book I wrote to describe all my memories of that great time of establishing the Jewish state. And then also the Arabs invaded Israel when we were about to establish the state, and we had to fight them as well. A bitter fight, and we had a lot of casualties, but we managed to achieve what we were about to do, to establish a Jewish state. And thank God, we are a free nation, and every Jew wants to come, is welcome. We were at that time, during my childhood, in the bottom of the world. Now we're getting higher and higher, thanks God. And now we have the power to fight for our defense, not like during the time of the Holocaust that we were like sheep led to the slaughterhouse. Thanks God. And all this memories written in my book, Elnakam. And it is very important that the next generation will know the price we paid for our freedom and the importance of this land to the Jewish nation.
Now, when you say copying letters, immediately I thought, well, I would just take out my cell phone and take a photo of the letter.
No, at that time, there were no cell phones. We had no telephones at homes even. I had to copy when I saw confidential letters with a stamp of very confidential, or telegrams. I don't know if people know what used to be telegram at that time, that I worked in the telegram department. So telegrams are sent by the British authorities in London to their officials in our country. It came to my hands and I copied them. I had to copy by hand because at that time I had no way to take pictures of it and to bring to the underground, to my meeting in the underground.
Now, you said that you're so impressed by the youth of today, and that's good. I think it's uplifting and it gives people hope. But, you know, a lot of times I hear people say, oh, these kids today with their phones and everything. How would you think about this new generation that grew up with the internet and grew up with phones?
If you don't read the press, if you don't watch the television, which is just, it's a cover of what's happening. But if you see deep in our people, you see a great nation, a great people, great soldiers, great youth. That in my time also I saw heroes, but we were few hundreds. Now, wherever I go, I see our youth is eager to fight, is eager to get into the fire just for the sake of Israel. And everywhere, it's not just few like it used to be at that time. It's not just a minority. Today, the whole country, and I'm sure that the result will be a great victory.
Maybe we can briefly talk about some of your other books. You have a book about your childhood.
Yes, I wrote a book about how we lived being a child. I wrote also memories of other heroes, like friends of mine who were the underground. I wrote a book about a great woman who happened to live in Lebanon. She happened to marry a young man from Lebanon and to join him there. And she managed to get information about what's going to happen during the War of Independence when the Arabs were about to invade. And she managed to pass this information to us here. And since then, she became a spy, which in unbelievable ways, she brought us very important information about all Arab countries, about their plans, about their armies. And she also managed to bring on Aliyah from all Arab countries and also from Iran, many thousands of Jews who live here. And so many times the Syrians were about to trace her and they tried to kidnap her. Miraculously, they didn't succeed. So they pressured the Lebanese government to arrest them. She'd been arrested. She'd been sentenced to death. But thank God she survived. And I happened to meet her in Israel. She was exchanged with prisoners after 6 days war. And then I knew her story. I learned her story and wrote about her this book.
To conclude, I'm interested about where you live. You live in a unique place.
I live in Jerusalem. Every place in Eretz Israel is part of our land. And we should live everywhere. We should live in Gaza. We should live in Jenin. It's our land. It's our land. We see where we don't live, murderers of Jews go and live there. And they became bases for our enemies. Every house which is not inhabited by Jews becomes a base of attacking Jews, of murdering Jews. We have to know that as well. And that's why I live in one of the neighborhoods where there are not many Jews, because we should be also everywhere.
Okay, we've been talking to Ezra Yakhin. I appreciate you coming on.
You're welcome.
I appreciate all the work that you've been doing, all the lectures that you've been giving in the Army, and I'm happy to share part of your story with the audience.
Thank you. Thank you. Be well. And I wish us to win this war, and we will be finished to inherit the land as it's demanded in the Bible.
Ezra, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This has been a moment in Jewish history. For questions or comments and past shows, you can visit benbresky.substack.com. Thank you to all the listeners, and Shalom.